everybody. Welcome to church this morning. I want to welcome all you people in the auditorium to filter into in the foyer to filter into the auditorium. And we're going to worship God.
Up your hymns of
To praise God first thing in the morning. Psalms 115:1 says, "Not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to you goes all the glory, all the praise for your unfailing love and faithfulness." That is so true this morning. God's love for us is just incredible. It's unfathomable, like how much He loves us for no reason. So we just want to praise Him. We just want to praise Him and thank Him for that. So let's go into this next song with that in our hearts. Your love's so great. Your love's so great. Jesus, in all things, I've seen a glimpse of your heart. A billion years, still I'll be singing. How can I praise you enough? Shining all the stars in glory, your outshining all the stars in glory. Your love is like the wildest ocean. Oh, nothing else compares. Not to us, not to us, but to your name. We lift up all praise. Not to us, but to your name. We lift up all praise. Not to us, but to your name. We lift up all praise. Not to us, but to your name. We lift up all praise. All praise. We lift up all praise.
Let's just take a second while we keep singing this one part again. You don't have to sing exactly the words that we're singing. If you want to just give God some praise for what He's done in your life, you can just take this time to do that. Just give Him the praise like we're singing. Right? Not to us,
To your name, oh, we lift up all praise. Not to us, but to your name, we lift up all praise. Not to us, but to your name, we lift up all praise. We love you, Lord. Praise you, Lord. Lift up praise. So I can hear the roars of mighty sound. Your love is an avalanche. I'm overcome. I'm overcome. With a crash, I'm tumbling down. I'm wildly moved. I'm overcome. I'm overcome. By your grace, your love, your peace.
is your first time here, you're wondering, what is so great that we're singing about? Why? How do you know God loves me? How do we know this? What I know from personal experience, which is probably the best thing I can talk about. I can't come at you with theological facts that just pull out of my brain. I'm not that kind of thinker. I speak from personal experience, from what God has done for me. I was worth nothing. I deserved absolutely nothing. And I remember I started playing on this worship team just because I had nothing better to do. I had nothing worthwhile, and I was making friends here. I was making people I could talk with, so I said, why not? I'm going to join this worship team. And it wasn't until a few weeks in that I even comprehended, man, God's been using me to change people's lives, to connect with people, and I don't even know if I've let him do that for me yet. Because he loves me so much. I was worth nothing, and God still decided to use me to change the course of other people's lives. And we kind of have that same, if you don't know why God loves you, you may feel like you're worth nothing. Like you're not worth being put in a position where you could change people's lives or put in a place that you'd have influence over other people. But God loved you enough to say, I'm going to use you, and I'm going to change the world because of you. And I'm going to send my son to die for you, even though you deserve it. So you can be used and you can reach people. And so when I sing about God's love, man, that's what I'm singing about. I'm singing about how his grace, he's allowed me to be on this stage even singing when I don't deserve to be. And he's allowed me to be a part of something way bigger than me. And that's just when we worship him. So if we could read that Psalm 115 again. Not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to your name goes all the glory, for your unfailing love and faithfulness. Man, as we sing, I'm going to sing this one more time. We're going to sing this one more time, and I want you guys to just think about, you don't feel worth it. God's going to use you. God's going to use you to reach just one more. Man, and we don't deserve any of the praise for it. We don't deserve any of the credit for it because we know we're not worth it. And so not to us, but to God's name will go all the glory. But man, he got to use us, and we got to be a part of it. Let's celebrate in that. All right, so let's sing. Out. We can praise you. Yeah, so that's what we're doing right now, God. I pray that you be with us for the rest of this service, God. I pray that we learn. I pray pray that we connect with you. But God, I just thank you for your unfailing love that you bring to us, for using us when we're not worth it, for caring about us when we may not even care about ourselves, God. God, we praise you, we worship you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, why don't you guys, before you sit down, shake someone's hand and welcome them to church.
Well, good morning. If I haven't met you before, my name is Nate. I'm the lead pastor here at Restoration Church, and I survived my week. I don't know about you. Literally, I could have died this week. Dave Belanger was over my house this weekend, and we ripped up an old floor, and it just stunk. And so I dumped bleach on it to clean it, and all of a sudden there was a toxic reaction to something. There was a reaction to something that was previously on the floor, and I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe, just water coming out of my eyes, and I escaped out of the house, and so did Dave. He's here this morning, and he asked me this morning, how you feeling? And I'm like, I'm feeling fine, how are you? He says, time will tell, you know. So that was part of my weekend, and hopefully, if you've never been to church before and this is your first time here, your experience has been better than that. You're not here like, get me out of here. This is unbelievable. You know, but hopefully you're comfortable, and we want you to be comfortable. Everything that we're doing this morning, and the reason we're starting the series we're in, and we have a guest speaker that we have this morning, is because we want this to be a safe place for you to find out about Jesus, for you to ask questions, for you to investigate him, and then just to be honest, we want you to make the decision to follow him. And even today, at the end of the service, we'll give you an opportunity to make that decision for yourself. And Jeremy talked about when he made that decision for his life in 2009. I made a decision, a long time ago when I was 5 years old in my own life, and so many of the people here have made that decision, and you maybe you've never heard anybody talk about Jesus that way, but we hope as you listen today, as you come through the rest of this series, that you'll make that decision for yourself. You know what? This is it. I'm going to follow him. Well, I mentioned we have a guest speaker, and some of us have heard her before because she spoke at Youth Convention, an event that we bring our teenagers to last April. And she is one of the speakers for Ravi Zacharias Ministries International, and many of you have heard of that ministry. And she's here, and is going to be at both services. And so why don't you put your hands together? Welcome Alicia as she comes.
Well, good morning. It's wonderful to be here with you all. Up until about, I guess a few hours ago, I lived in Boston. I actually just made the trek from Boston to Atlanta. I have lived in Boston for 4 years and have loved being up here in the Northeast. And I made that long trek down to Atlanta, unpacked, got on a plane, came back up here to be with you all. And so far, in the 5 hours I've been in Atlanta, there's been like hurricane warnings and tornado watches and a tiger running loose. So I'm still trying to figure out why they complain about our snow. Like, really? That's all we have to deal with. But I'm headed back down there today, and it's funny because I was in Charlotte not too long ago on my drive, and they were out of gas, even in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm like, what in the world? So anyways, I'm up here where we have food and gas and everything's running just fine and sun. Praise the Lord, you know? But just really happy to spend the morning with you all. And I was asked to speak on a topic that I actually really enjoy speaking on. It's this whole idea of why Christianity. Now, I, like Nate, have been a Christian a really long time. And so for me, this whole idea of why Christianity versus other belief systems and other religions is something that I've had to ask myself. I don't know if it's something that you have wondered, if it's something that you have spent the time to think through. If you are a Christian, why are you a Christian? If you're not a Christian, why are you not a Christian? But for me, it's something I had to spend time thinking through. And not just this idea of, is Christianity true or is Christianity not true? But even this whole idea of, is there even a God at all? Because we even have to start even a step back, don't we? Before we look at to see why is it you've chosen Christianity, we also need to establish, is there even a God? And so I've had to reflect over this question for a while now. And if you were to ask me when I was a kid why it is that I'm a Christian, my answer would have been really simple. I said, Mom, how did we get here? She says, well, God made us. Or why is the sky blue? Well, God made the sky blue. Great, that works when you're 8. That works when you're 6. My answer is, if you would ask me as to why Christianity, or why is it that you're a Christian over other belief systems, I mean, very simple. Well, there's a God and he made us. That's how I got here. It was a very simple kind of thing. But then what happens? We get older. And the questions start to get a little bit deeper. And for me, my deep moment occurred when I was in college. When I had to sit there and actually ask for myself, Alicia, why do you really think this is true? And I remember really struggling with this whole idea of Christianity. Remember, I just struggling with this idea, could I really actually trust the Bible? Is it really something that I'm living my life after something that I've read and that I believe it's true, but how do I know it's true? And I really began to struggle with what I believed in. But then as I began to really doubt Christianity, as I began to really say, you know what, I think this whole thing is a bunch of hocus pocus, I had to reflect over my life. And there were certain experiences that I'd had in my life that could only be explained if there was a God or if there was some kind of divine intervention. So if I wanted to say that Christianity wasn't true, then I had to come up with some other kind of explanation for these things. You could say, fine, Christianity isn't it, maybe it's another belief system, that's fine. But you have to somehow explain these certain experiences, certain things that you prayed to God that nobody knew about that were answered in very precise ways. And so those experiences actually gave me enough motivation to say, you know what, maybe I will once again consider Christianity. Maybe I shouldn't just throw it all away just yet. And so if you had said to me, Alicia, why Christianity? As a college student, I would have said, well, you know, it explains things that have happened to me in my life. It makes sense of certain things that I've gone through in my life. So as adults, because you're going to bring me now to where I am now, we have to ask ourselves these questions. But we need to start with not just which religion and which God, but is there even a God at all? And so before I jump into why Christianity, I want to take a few minutes to establish in a very small way, and this is going to be a very, very brief way, of establishing, is there even a reason to believe that there is even a God at all? This most foundational question that philosophers, and probably every one of you have asked at some point in your life, is how do we get here? Who made us? How do we get something from nothing? Science has shown us that the universe had a beginning. Science has been looking at ways to explain how things have happened once things began, but they've never been able to come up with the how. How did it all start? Now, this isn't a new question. The philosopher Keith Ward once said, to the majority of those who have reflected deeply and written about the origin and nature of the universe, it is seen that it points beyond itself to a source which is non-physical and of great intelligence and power. Almost all of the great classical philosophers, certainly Plato, Aristotle, Descartes, Leibniz, Spinoza, Kant, Hegel, Locke, and Berkeley, saw the origin of the universe as lying in a transcendent reality. They had different specific ideas of this reality and different ways of approaching it, but that the universe is not self-explanatory and that it requires some explanation beyond self was something they accepted as fairly obvious. So it seems that we actually are lumped in with the philosophers of the age. How many of you ever thought of yourself as a philosopher? But if you have given any thought to this question, you have done what they have spent centuries trying to do. And it makes sense, because we look around us in this world and we say anything that has a beginning, anything that started has a cause. If I show you this music stand right here, and I say, how did it get here? That would be a perfectly logical, rational question to ask. Why? Because we know at some point, somebody had to form this into a being. It didn't always just exist, and it certainly didn't pop into existence. So we would rationally ask, how did it get here? And so as time grew on, we went from asking this conceptual question of how do we get here to why is it that everything works so well? Why is it everything is so beautifully designed, not just to exist, but for life? And this is what makes the case for some kind of transcendent, not necessarily a Christian God, but just some kind of transcendent divine being even greater. I want to read you a little snippet of an interview that a gentleman named Ira Flatow said in his introduction in an NPR interview. He was interviewing a gentleman named Christoph Koch. Christoph Koch is actually the chief scientific officer of the Allen Institute for Brain Science. And Ira Flatow at NPR was about to interview him. And this is what he says in his introduction. He says that your brain has nearly 100 billion neurons. And Christoph compares that complexity to the Amazon rainforest, as there are about as many trees in the Amazon as there are neurons in your brain. Think about what the Amazon looks like for a second. And the roots and the branches and the leaves and the vines, all of that can be compared to the tangled network formed between your brain cells. Because many of your neurons are in fact wired to tens of thousands of other neurons. That incredible, complex network is packed into a soft, 3-pound organ inside your head, making it, as Christoph says, the most complicated object in the known universe that lives inside of you. And that brain, unlike the brain of other animals, is always questioning and wondering, how do we get here? What are we here for? Why are we here? Well, I had a friend who told me once that one of the major differences between us and animals is that we ask why. We want to know why. We want to better understand. And do we ask why because some transcendent actually wants us to ask why? Are we designed to ask why? Are we designed to inquire and to know? I think so. I don't think that Christianity is unique in that particular way, in the sense that we have beings who are created to wonder, beings that are created to believe that there is a designer, beings that are created to believe that everything is so beautiful and so beautifully designed for us. You can look at many other faiths that have a creation story, Islam, Greek mythology. So all these things that I said are not necessarily going to give any reasons why Christianity. But it helps us to establish that there seems to be something out there. The question is, what is it? What is it like? And so if I'm going to answer this question about why Christianity, I need to go further. I need to give you some reasons why I think Christianity specifically best identifies and explains whatever being that is in comparison to other belief systems. So often I hear people say to me, You know, Alicia, all religions really are the same. It's kind of like we're all climbing up a mountain just trying to get to the top, but we have different pathways. Some people maybe walk up like this. Other people walk up like this. And so there's a range of different pathways that people get to the top. But it's all the same thing. We're all on the same search and quest. Well, while I may agree that we are ultimately trying to search for truth, the big question we have to ask is, but which God is it that's at the top? Hinduism will tell you that there's millions of gods at the top. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam will tell you that there's one. But even those religions will disagree on what the being, that one being, looks like. Is he Trinitarian, as a Christian would say? Or is he Unitarian, as a Muslim would say? So we can't really just say that all religions are the same. There's different ways in which that God is defined. And I think Christianity helps us to know several things about that God. Number one, that it's perfect. Number two, that it's wise, that it's all-knowing, that it's powerful. And Christianity also helps us to understand the questions that we all ask about our life. How do we get here? How do we live? Why are we here? The human condition, our brokenness, our feelings of sadness and grief. The fact that we think that there's something bigger in this world, or that there is a deity out there. We have a natural tendency to believe there's a deity. If you think about civilizations in the past, remote tribes, remote places, there's always some kind of deity of some sort. It may be the tree god, but there's always something that's there. And so why Christianity as an adult? Well, I'll give you a sneak peek and tell you the answer. Because I think that the more I've dug into Christianity, the more it's demonstrated to me that it actually is true. The more I read the Bible, the more amazed I am at the wisdom of God. And the more I study about God, the more I realize how perfect in every way the Christian God is. In other words, friends, I've grown in confidence in the confidence and validity of Christianity over any other religion. So I want to take my remaining time to talk to you about why specifically Christianity in the first place. Specifically, this idea of morality. See, all the major faiths, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, all of these major faiths will have some sort of moral code, some way in which we should live. Okay? It makes sense. They have different sources for their moral code. Maybe it's a prophet, maybe it's a sage, maybe it's a particular piece of writing. But they all have a different maybe origination of where that code comes from. But they all say that there is something that tells us how to live. That's what the religions generally say. Okay? If God says this is good, then you should do it. If God says this is bad, then you shouldn't do it. That's evil. Makes sense. But more importantly, the question we need to ask these other religions is, do they actually explain the brokenness and the human condition within us? So, for example, why is it that I need to teach a 2-year-old not to bite, and I never have to teach them to bite? Why do we have a natural tendency to do things or live in a way that's different to maybe how we should strive for, the best way in which we can live life? Well, Christianity says, you know what? The way that we can know about what's right or wrong is not just say, oh, well, God says it's right and God says it's wrong, and therefore it's right or wrong. What Christianity does is it does something even more unique. Is Christianity grounds morality within the very nature and character of that being. So in other words, if God says that you should you should be forgiving or you should be caring, that's because God is caring and forgiving himself. So the only thing that he tells us, when he tells us what to do and how to live, it's consistent with a perfectly good God. And in other words, love is good, not because God says, hey, you should love people, but because God is love itself. And so morality isn't just something that we should do because God says one day in 2017, hey, love is good. Because what's the risk in that? In 2018, he could say, love is no longer good. If he's just randomly picking these things, then how do we ever know what good is? So Christianity doesn't just say, hey, listen to the prophet or listen to the sage or read some text. Christianity says actually our morality is grounded in the source of a perfectly good being himself. And anything he tells us to do is grounded within him and is consistent with his nature and consistent with his character. And that gives us confidence that whatever he says is right is really right, and whatever he says is wrong is really wrong. And he demonstrates his perfection and his goodness throughout the Bible, and he lays inside the hearts of every single one of us a sense of right and wrong. Now, we often suppress it, or we ignore it, or we do a variety of things. But he instills within each one of us a sense of, you know what? It probably just isn't right if I do that. So one reason why I think Christianity over other belief systems is because Christianity takes morality out of being just a command of God or something that is written in a text somewhere, and it actually puts it within the very nature of that perfectly good being. And that helps me to know that whichever way I live is actually how I was intended to be, based on what he tells me to do. But yet there's still other reasons why I think Christianity speaks over other religions. And that's because I don't think we can fully experience beauty without fully knowing the creator behind it. Let me see if I can make some sense of what I'm trying to say. I was speaking to a friend of mine. He is a philosopher. He's an atheist. He does not believe in God. And I remember asking him at one point in his life, as I said to him, has there ever been a time in your life in which you wish that there was a God? And he said, no. There's never been a time in my life in which I felt like, I think there is one, or any of those kind of things. And he said, but you know what? There have been times in my life when I've been struck by the beauty of creation and been sorry that there was no one to thank. And that spoke so powerfully to me. Because what is he saying? He is saying that, you know what? I don't really feel a need for a God, but when I look around this world and I see all of this beautiful creation, I want to thank somebody. It draws out of me a response. But as an atheist, I have no one to give that response to. But I want to connect deeper, on a deeper level with that creation. But I can't, because I don't believe that there's anything out there. What is he saying? He is saying that actually part of us fully experiencing the beauty of an object is very closely linked with our desire to know its author or its creator. And this has probably happened to you. If you've ever walked into a museum and you see a beautiful art painting and you're like, wow, what is this? What's one of the first things you say? Who's the painter? You immediately, once you find it beautiful, want to know who made it. And it makes sense that art is a natural expression of the being that made it itself. That would make complete sense. And so once we understand the beauty, or once we understand who the author is, it changes the way in which we therefore are able to perceive and understand the painting. If I was to show you this picture and say to you, okay, I would like for you to pay me $200 for this picture. You might look at me and say, okay, how about you go back to Atlanta? Because maybe that's what they do down in the South. I don't know. I'll find out over the next few weeks. But what if I was to say, okay, fine, you don't want to pay money for the painting, that's fine. But what if I was to say, but let me tell you a little bit more about it. This painting, while it may look like a bunch of scribbles, was painted by a young girl. And she grew up in a war-torn country. And while she was out playing with her friends, she stepped on a landmine, and it blew off her arm. And this painting is the very first picture she has drawn with her new prosthetic arm. Now does it change the way in which you see that painting? Now would you consider paying money for it? In other words, until you knew the author, you couldn't appreciate the artwork. Till you know the painter, you can't appreciate the painting. It enhances it. It makes it more beautiful. It makes it even greater. Now, it could be a horrible story, and knowing the author could make you turn away from it. So just because you know who's behind it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to absolutely fall in love with it. But I'm just saying that once you do know who's behind it, it does change the way in which you experience the artwork. And if I don't know who your creator is, I'm going to treat you differently. I'm going to respond to you differently as a person. But the minute I have a belief that there is a creator behind every one of you, and the minute I begin to know who that creator is and understand who that creator is and understand who that designer is the minute I begin to see every single one of you in a different way. I begin to see you as more beautiful. I begin to see you as more valuable. I begin to see you as more precious. And what Christianity says is that every single person is created what's called the image of God, this idea that there are attributes and characteristics of us that reflect the very being who made us. Just like you can look at a particular painting and say, oh, this has to be this particular person because you can see their handiwork in it. The artwork is always a reflection of the artist. And I think this is what my friend was getting at. I think this is why he struggled. Because there was something greater of an experience he was seeking with creation that he was holding himself back from experiencing. He wanted someone to thank. He wanted someone to share the awe of creation with. And I think and in Christianity, we have the ability to look at every person, every piece, every person that's ever existed, every person that will ever be, and say that they are all created in some way reflection of their creator. That is a very unique view that's specific only to the Judeo-Christian view. You will not find that in Islam. You will not find that in Hinduism. You will not find that in Buddhism. You won't find that in Jainism. It's very specific to the Judeo-Christian worldview. And that's why in a lot of those other belief systems, you'll find social rankings. Some people are better than others. Some people are more valuable than others because they don't have that foundational premise that Christianity says of all people being beautiful and valuable. But one more reason why I think Christianity over other belief systems is because it does a great job of explaining the human condition. What do I mean by that? I think that as I look around this world, we see a lot of grief and anguish, and we may even be feeling that inside of us. And what do we want to do, right? The Miss America answer. We want world peace. We want to make everything better. We want things to be improved. We want the environment to feel loved. We want poverty to end. We want starvation to end. We want people to live well. We want goodness to prevail. And this actually isn't unique to our time or even to an American culture. It's something that people all around the world would love. This gentleman, his name is Eugene Ionesco. He's a former French playwright, and as far as I know, he was not religious at all. But he writes this very interesting statement. He says that in the history of humanity, there are no civilizations or cultures which fail to manifest in one or 1,000 ways this need for an absolute that is called heaven, freedom, a miracle, a lost paradise to be regained, peace, the going beyond history. There is no era which fails to express the need for man to be transfigured, the new man, the superior man, the superman, or which fails to express the desire for revolution, for the ideal city, that is to say, the desire to purify the world, to change it, to save it, to reintegrate it metaphysically. Humanity has never been satisfied with reality such as it is. There's no religion in which everyday life is not considered a prison. I think there are times when we feel this longing for a better world more than in other times. And I think there's ways in which we kind of can get lost in imagining and thinking and wishing for that better world. I don't know if you've ever gone through a hard time and just put on a song and just felt like it kind of took you away to a better place. Felt like the sense of escape, the sense of like being able to escape the physical world and enter into something different. The reality is, friends, that we all hurt. We hurt at what happens around us, and we hurt even our own personal lives. And we're all looking for a way, we're looking for something to bring healing, to bring hope, to bring a smile, to bring joy, to fix the broken things that we see in this world around us and even within our very own hearts. We're looking for a place to find hope. Because we know, I think we've established and recognized that without hope, it's even harder to process through this life. There's an interesting scene from a movie where it talks about a gentleman who goes to a doctor. And he says, doctor, I just feel so alone. I just feel so saddened and depressed. Life is so cruel. I need help. And the doctor says, relax, friend, relax. It's okay. The great clown Pagliacci is in town. You need to go see Pagliacci. He will make you smile. He will make you laugh. He will make you feel so much better. And the man looks at the doctor and he says, but doctor, I am the clown. Where do we go when we feel like we've exhausted all of the ways in which friends can help us or we can help ourselves? Psychiatrists will tell you and psychologists will tell you that the surest sign that somebody is suicidal is that they're at the point where they feel like they're helpless and hopeless. Helpless and hopeless. One of the things I love about Christianity is that it offers hope. It will admit and acknowledge that, yes, this is going to be a world of pain, a world of brokenness, a world of anger, a world of tears. But there is hope. Because it talks about a future that can never be changed or altered by anything that happens down here. That hope, that future that lies within the Christian mindset and the Christian individual is that one day they get to be closely with their God. Experience perfect goodness. Experience perfect love. Experience life as we were designed and intended to live it. No, it's not going to happen now, but it will one day. In other words, there's an end to everything that we are experiencing. There's an end to the grief and the sorrow and pain. Christianity promises a world that's to come without pain and suffering. And while we're here to know God and experience God and to experience His beautiful creation, the way that we experience life right now is never the way in which we were intended to experience it. And one day, we will live in a world that is very different from now. And that may seem trivial. This idea of hope, this idea of a guarantee of something in the future may seem trivial, but I assure you it's not, even in your regular daily lives. Let's say I was going to get in the car to drive back to Boston, and like we all know, there's always a chance you can get in a car accident. So what do? We put on a seatbelt, right? When we know there's a chance or possibility of something, we put on a seatbelt. It brings about a small change in our life and the way in which we exist. But what if I knew that if I got in that car, I was definitely going to get in a car accident and die? Would I get in that car and put on a seatbelt? Or would I not get in that car at all? See, when you have a guarantee of something, it changes, it overhauls the way in which you live. The way in which you process through life, the way in which you think of things, the actions that you take. And in Christianity, hope is talked about like that. It's talked about as a guarantee. It's not a possibility. It's a guarantee. And that overhauls and that changes the way in which you live. Now, it doesn't mean that the life for a Christian is always happy, happy, joy, joy, and everything's going to be great. No, it doesn't mean that at all. But it does mean that in the midst of pain and grief and sorrow, there is always hope. And a hope that can never be taken away or changed by anything you do or anybody else does on this earth. And really, friends, what else is left for somebody to hold on to when they feel so at the end of their strength, but a promise that they will one day smile again? I want to share one final thought before I close this out. I think one of the most profound things I find compelling about Christianity is this idea of love. Now, you will find love in other belief systems as well, from God to humanity. So it's not that uniqueness that I find interesting about Christianity. A Muslim would say that God is loving. And so this idea of love, God expressing love towards humanity, isn't necessarily something new or specific to Christianity. It's not unique. But what is unique to Christianity is the way in which God demonstrates that love. If I was to say to you, what is the greatest ethic that we could possibly have, you would probably say love. If I would say to you, what is the greatest way in which we can demonstrate that love? Now, if you're a parent, you immediately know this answer, through self-sacrifice. Okay, so why you see parents who have children who are sick, or have cancer or some other ailment, and they say, take me instead. Give me the cancer. I would rather it take my life than my child. Why? It's because they love that child so much that they don't want it to go through that, right? The greatest way in which we can demonstrate love is through self-sacrifice. And you know what? Jesus himself says this. He says, no greater love does anybody have than this, and they lay down their life for a friend. Several years ago, back when I was in high school, and I'm going to leave it at several years, not say generations ago, but several years ago when I was in high school, we just started summer break, and I was going into, I believe, my junior year, and I mean, we are like a day or two into summer break. We are not that far into it at all. And several kids decided that they wanted to go to this popular place by the canal. And it's like there's like a bridge that goes over the canal, and then you can climb up on the bridge, and you can jump off the bridge into the water. And the bridge is actually train tracks as well. So you kind of just jump off, and you come back on, and you do this kind of thing. It's a very popular thing that kids would do, even though it's something they shouldn't really be doing. Well, there's about 10 or so of them up there this one particular Saturday, and jumping off. When a bicyclist comes riding, he's like, what are these kids doing up here? I just passed the train. So he's telling the kids, get off the tracks, there's a train coming. So the kids start running off the tracks and getting off the tracks as fast as they can. Well, one young lady was running off the tracks, and she was wearing those jelly shoes. Some of you are old enough to know what those jelly shoes were, but they're kind of like those plasticky, rubbery kind of shoes. And it got caught in the train track. So she's screaming to her boyfriend to come back. He's already off the train tracks. Come back and help her. So he runs back onto the train tracks, can see the train coming, and is trying to wrestle her foot out. He's able to get her foot free right before the train hits them both, sends him one way, and sends her another. They had 2 funerals for these 2 15-year-olds. I think they were maybe even 14. And I remember on his casket, my economics teacher wrote something that I never forgot. He said that legends die many deaths, but a hero dies just one. Legends die many deaths, but a hero dies just one. And what was he getting at? A hero dies giving his life for a friend. A hero dies demonstrating love in the greatest possible way through sacrifice. And what's interesting to me, that the Bible says that God demonstrates his own love for us. And that while we hated him, while we didn't want him, he dies for us. Now that's interesting, because a God who sacrifices his life is not found in other belief systems. In other belief systems, it's abhorrent, it's blasphemous It's disgusting to think that God would ever even come down here and associate with us dirty people. This is one reason why Islam has such a problem with the cross. You're telling me God would come down here and come close to us and be a human? That's disgusting. And in Christianity, it says, yeah, exactly all that. And he does it, and he shows us love in the greatest possible way. And by in so doing, he demonstrates that he is perfect in every way. Because had God not sacrificed, had he not given his life in that way, then that would mean he wasn't perfect. How so? Because that means I could look at any one of you and say, you know what? I'm going to give my life for you and show you how much I love you. And I've now shown love for you in a way that's greater than God has shown love for you. If he can't sacrifice and I can sacrifice for you, I can outlove God. And he's no longer perfect and he's no longer good. And so only in Christianity do we have a God who demonstrates his love and his perfection in the highest possible way. And I think that this is a major thorn in the side, to say it gently, for any other belief system that doesn't have a God who's willing to do that. There's only one religion, belief system, that tells us where we came from. It helps us to know how to live, this human condition that we talked about. It gives us a hope for the future. And it claims a God who is so morally good that he gives his life for mankind, thereby demonstrating love in the greatest way possible. So why Christianity? Because the person of Jesus proves that God is a perfectly good, loving creator through his sacrifice on the cross. And this love for his creation, that he has for his creation, offers guidance for how to live on this earth, addresses our hurts and pains, and paves the way for us to be reunited with him in the next, which is ultimately the hope of every Christian. And so I leave you with 3 questions. What are you doing about whatever belief system you have or no belief system that you have? What are you doing about that? Question number 2 is what you're doing helping you. Your belief or your lack of belief, is it helping you? And if not, what is it that you would do differently? What was it that you would do to find a way to better connect, to have a better explanation, to find a better hope, to find a better place for healing? What makes somebody a Christian is not because they've done a whole bunch of really good things, because if that's what it is, none of us would ever be. That's just the honest truth. I know you're thinking that Alicia's got to be the bomb, but newsflash, I'm not as perfect as everybody thinks. Being a Christian is recognizing that and recognizing this idea that there's a God who says, relax, guys. You can never be good enough. Stop trying to climb up that mountain. You'll never get to the top. And that's why I climbed down. And I offer you forgiveness what you've done wrong. And I also will not make you pay, not make you suffer, not make you be punished, but I will punish myself. That's the point of the cross. It's God demonstrating his love, saying, I will take on punishment in place of you. Because a perfectly good God has to be perfectly just. He has to punish what we do wrong. And instead of us paying, he pays. Someone who's a Christian says, hey, I believe that. I accept that, God. I accept that you forgive me for what I've done wrong. I accept that I can't climb up that mountain. I accept that you come down. I accept that you have overcome the distance and the brokenness that's caused me to live in a broken relationship with you. I want to be restored. I want to be new. I want to be close to the artist again. So if that's you today and you're like, look, I've never really experienced this Christianity thing before. It's a little bit new for me, but I kind of like what I'm hearing. There's going to be some people coming up in just a few minutes, a prayer team, and we'd love to have you come up and pray with them. If you're someone who says, you know what, I just have more questions. I just need to understand this a little bit better. Come up to the prayer team and ask them those questions. And if you're someone who was kind of like me, who was a Christian, but went through a serious time of doubting and even walked away, come up to the prayer team and tell them. It's honest. If you think doubt is something to be ashamed about, let me tell you that you have a God who's bigger than your shame. You have a God who doesn't look down on you. I think it's good to question why you believe. So be open about it. I'm doubting. I'm not sure. Come up and let the prayer team be there with you, talk with you, and pray with you. So any one of those three things, when the prayer team comes in a few minutes, I would encourage you to come up as well. Thank you so much.
Let's sing. You are the Lord Almighty, outshining all the stars in glory. Your love is like the wildest ocean. Oh, nothing else compares. You are the Lord Almighty, outshining all the stars in glory. Your love is like the wildest ocean. Oh, nothing else compares. Not to us, but to your name we lift up all praise. Not to us, but to your name we lift up all praise. Not to us, but to your name we lift up all praise. Not to us, but to your name. The Lord Almighty, outshining all the stars in glory. Your love is like the wildest ocean. Oh, nothing else compares. You are the Lord Almighty, outshining all the stars in glory. Your love is like the wildest ocean. Oh, nothing else compares.
This morning, if you're making that decision, we want to know it. And you come forward and you meet with Pastor John or with Bob for prayer. Another step you can take is if you take one of the connection cards that was on the seat where you're sitting. You can fill that out with your name and as much information as you feel comfortable, and just mark that box on the bottom. I'm making a decision to follow Jesus. This is what we want to celebrate that with you and help you take your next steps in following Jesus. And if you've never been here before, you can fill out that same connection card and let us know that. And when you leave, if you go to the Welcome Center, we have a gift for you, and we're glad that you're here. You may not be ready yet today to make that decision, and so we invite you back in the coming weeks. During this time, we give as well, and you can put that connection card in the baskets as they go by, and you can use one of the envelopes to give. Just those of you who come to Restoration Church, just want to remind you about our Plymouth launch on November 5th and everything that's going on. We were there yesterday. I was with Chris and Gabe, and we were and with the people from the church there. Plymouth had citywide yard sale yesterday, and so there was one happening at the church. And the church is the only public restrooms open in Plymouth, so a lot of people coming through. Got to meet some great people, and one of the people that we met with and that I talked with had gone to the church as a kid, stopped going 15 years ago, and hasn't really gone to church since. And we got to invite her and her boyfriend, and they were so excited to come back in November and to check it out. And we know to make a decision now to follow Jesus. So, man, lots of things going on and lots of things happening. So just thank you, those of you who are giving, and ushers can go forward, receive that. If you're here and you're part of Restoration Church, or you're here today even for the first time, and now you're going to be a part is it this week? Somebody help me out. Circles are starting soon. When you leave here, there's going to be the different circle leaders in the lobby. You get a chance to meet them all, find out where they are and who they are. We want everybody part of a circle. And so there's one near you, hopefully at a night that works for you. They're kind of all different locations and all different times. And so join one. Sign up for one. It's, I think it's 13 weeks long. So it ends either the week of Thanksgiving or the week after, right around there. And then they'll start back up again in February. And so it's a short-term commitment. So if you get in there and all the people there are just weird, you can switch your circle. We do try to filter that. But that's happening there. So anyway, as you guys, why don't you stand up as you leave and go check out the circles. If you're here and you need to respond to what Alicia was talking about, while everybody walks out of the room, we invite you to come forward. You guys have a great day.